Hello everyone! I'm finally reviewing and doing a wear test and application of my favorite concealer that I've been talking about for months and months and months, but for some reason haven't done a review on. And I also listed it as my top product of 2023. So I'll have that video listed in the description box, but this is the Natasha Denona HY-Glam Concealer. I love it. It's one of those products that I just find is so reliable and gives me consistent results no matter on the skin issues that I'm having, no matter how dry or how oily my skin is that day. I just feel like this concealer is fantastic. So in this video, I'm going to be showing it to you applied as a concealer, as a foundation, and just telling you all the reasons I love it. So from the Natasha Denona website, this says that it uses a unique butterflow technology and it adjusts to any irregularity on the skin surface, locking in coverage for all day wear, specifically tailored for all skin types. It does have skincare ingredients that's designed to, over time, have like a firming effect, fade away dark circles, reduce puffiness, and I think also have anti-aging and sort of anti-inflammatory effects. So there is apparently some long-term effects you can get from this. I'm not sure, I'm not going to make those claims. It's talc-free, it's vegan, it's cruelty-free, it's made in Italy. It does say that it's lightweight and natural finish, but then when you go into a little bit more information, it says that it's a long-lasting creaseless concealer with a natural medium buildable coverage, luminous matte finish. It's made with biomimetic pigments and texture perfecting microspheres for flawless airbrush results with a weightless natural look and flexible feel with up to 19 hours wear. So it does sound like there's a bit of a contradiction going on in there. So it's saying that it's a luminous matte finish. I would say that it's probably more of a natural finish. So I think there is some luminosity in it, but it also sort of sets down slightly. So it doesn't budge, but it doesn't look powder dry matte. So I wouldn't necessarily call this matte, but if you do powder it, you can get a matte finish. Most of the other claims I actually do agree with. I think it's a very, very flexible, very flawless perfecting formula. You can sort of easily buff it across your whole face and it does sort of just blur over lines and creases. So I think it's really beautiful. I think it actually looks nicer if you apply it a little bit more sheerly than if you build it up, but it is medium buildable. You could also probably get it a lot lighter coverage if you mix it with a moisturizer or something. But I think that claim with the coverage is absolutely accurate. So I think this looks gorgeous. I think it does perfect the skin really well. It's very customizable in terms of the coverage, but it's also really customizable in terms of the finish. So if you apply it over more of a hydrating base, you can make it a little bit more dewy. If you set it with like a powder, you can make it a little bit more matte. So I do find it's very, very flexible across different skin types. And I also think it's very long wearing. Of course, I'm going to show you how this wears. It's not going to be a full 19 hours, but it's probably going to be 12. And I'm just going to show you why I love this concealer and why I love using it as a foundation. Now, as a background for me, I'm nearly 38 years old. Now, ever since having my second baby, my skin has become so dehydrated in winter, but I historically have oily combination skin. So I used to always go for long wear sort of matte finish products because I'd find in my T-zone, things would just break down throughout the day. However, now that I'm a bit older and I've had 2 kids, I find that I can get really dehydrated on my forehead, really dehydrated on my cheeks, but still oily on my T-zone. So I found myself in a bit of a difficult situation where I can't wear my traditional long wear matte products because it doesn't work. It looks really textured and really like flaky and dry in the areas that are dehydrated, but then I can't use really luminous dewy products because it just like smears off my T-zone. And I can tell you that this works for me in all places of my skin. It looks beautiful and flawless over the dehydrated areas. I just don't set it with a powder in those areas, but then under my eyes and around my nose and chin where I'm quite oily, I set it more with a powder. And I found that this has been the one consistent product that I can wear that looks flawless and lasts really well all the time. So I think it totally meets the claims. I think it's as good as it sounds. I absolutely love this. And I have said multiple times on my channel, I would replace my whole base collection with just this because you can build it up and use it as a concealer where you want it, or you can sheer it out and use it as a beautiful, flawless like foundation, and it just feels really lightweight. It looks really beautiful, and I am obsessed with it. Now the shade that I have is a neutral shade. This is shade N4. Now with the shade range, it is quite an extensive shade range, and they do have very like distinct splits when it comes to the undertones. So N is for neutral, R is for rosy, Y is for yellow, and P is for peach. They also have some correctors in the range, like peachy orange correctors. So I have a light olive skin tone with a bit of redness in my skin. So I sort of struggle finding the right tone, but I found that these neutrals are really, really great. They almost have a little bit of gray in them, which happens to work really, really well if you've got olive tones to your skin. So I love this. The one thing I do want to mention is it's probably best to go in store and find your perfect match, because since there are quite distinct differences between the undertones, if you're not sure if you're like a yellow or a neutral, you might want to try that. You might even need to mix the two, because the difference between the undertones are very, very different. If you swatch a neutral, a peach, a rose, and a yellow on your hand, which have a similar depth to it, you will notice that they all look so distinctly different. You might find that you are a neutral pink and you might need to mix two. Luckily for me, I can just use one. Natasha Denona also shows quite extensively on the Instagram account that you can use different shades of this to actually sculpt your face. So if you want to have a contour or you want a bronzer, you can obviously go a deeper shade, either being neutral, so more sort of gray tone, or you can have it warmer, like a yellow tone, to make it a little bit more warm if you want to bronze. You can use highlighters, you can use a bunch of different things. So these are really, really versatile, and I think they're such a beautiful product. So let's cut to me applying it, and we'll continue on with the wear test. All right, it is nearly 9:45 in the morning, and now unfortunately I've already been up for 5 hours. So let's get some concealer on my face. What I'm planning on doing is, I've done my skincare. The shine that you're seeing is just my SPF that I put on about half an hour ago now. Look, with this concealer, I find that you can put whatever base you want. I predominantly go for hydrating bases because I'm getting older and that's sort of what my skin prefers. The one that I've been using quite a lot recently is the Bobbi Brown Vitamin Enriched Face Base. Now, because I don't like to use primers when I do wear tests, because I feel like it should stand alone, I'm going to just apply this to half my face. So this is going to be the primed side. So we can see how different the application is. We can see how different it wears. I don't actually know. So this is a bit of an experiment for me, but this is often what I do just to add some extra hydration to my face. And I don't want sort of, it to skew results. Look, instantly, this has vitamin C in it, and my skin can get a little bit irritated with vitamin C. You can instantly see redness sort of flaring up. It will calm down, but that's vitamin C for you. So what I tend to do is I just take one application, like one wand's worth of product. This does have a little bit of a dip in it, so it's a nice pointed one, but it does have a little like well in it, so it does hold a bit of product. I'll start with a non-primed side so we don't sort of have cross-contamination. I just put a little bit, that's probably too much, let's take a little bit off because you don't want to put too much. A little bit there, a little bit there. Chin is an area that I get a lot of redness and it breaks down. And then I just sort of put a little bit of the excess wherever. I'm going to do that with the same thing with the other side. So just under the eyes, around the nose, chin, and then excess just wherever until the wand is pretty much almost empty of product. And that's it. That's all I need. That looks like a lot actually. But you don't need to sort of reapply heaps. I am going to be using sort of a fluffy brush. This is not quite a kabuki brush. This is by Ella Cosmetics. I don't even know what brush this is. It's sort of more of a buffing brush. I find I can use my fingers. I find I can use a sponge. I just don't have any clean sponges at the moment, so we're going to do this. Now I start with the center of my face, and I do need to have some on my nose, so I sort of take whatever's sort of excess in here and start putting it on my nose. And I sort of just dab it in. I end up swiping a lot of it, so if I want a bit more of a sheer application, I do more swiping. I take a little bit down my neck, even though the color match is very good. It's just to sort of blend a little bit. I can also get a little bit flushed on my neck, so it can get a little bit red, so it's nice to sort of carry it down. I don't find that this oxidizes on me, so I don't need to worry too much about that, but I just find that it blends very easily. Even if I sweep, hang on, let's zoom in a bit more and turn this down so you can have a good look. Even if I sweep the brush, I find it doesn't leave like crazy lines like other foundations or concealers might. So I find this is just really easy, and I like to blend it out to a fairly sort of medium coverage, something that covers all my redness but isn't like a thick layer. I think sometimes people think, you know, applying a concealer as a foundation, you're going to get it very thick, but this one actually blends out really beautifully, and you can see it gives a bit of shine. This is just my non-prime side. Now let's do the prime side, same thing. So I've used fluffier brushes, I've used denser brushes, they all tend to work for me. The one sort of brushes that I don't actually like for foundation application is, ironically, foundation brushes, like those traditional sort of flat ones. I find you sort of paint on the product, whereas I sort of like a bit of a buffing. All right, because I'm doing half-half, the thing that's sort of stuffing me up a little bit is I feel like I haven't put enough on my nose. So what I might actually do is just get a tiny bit more and put a little bit on my nose, because I just feel like that is looking a little bit more pink. So just a dot, just a tiny bit. I'd actually just blend that in really lightly because I want a bit of coverage there. Okay, so the nose we're not going to get much of a testing ground for, it is what it is, but that is it. It looks so flawless. Like, what pores where? What lines who? I could put a little bit more on my chin, I don't mind that. And this looks a heck of a lot more dewy because of the base. So no base, like no primer, hydrating primer. You can see if you have dry skin, you know, you want to sort of go in with this sort of technique, and you might even find that you don't want to powder it. You might want to powder under your eyes if you get a bit of creasing there, which I tend to do. But if you have really dry skin, just leave it like that. I find that this concealer sort of sets enough that you really don't need to go in heavy-handed with powder, but it's totally up to you, and that's what I like about it. It's very tweakable. So I find that this looks flawless. This is the finish I actually get from the Armani Luminous Silk, but I need to build that up a lot. Like, I need to put like 2 layers on to get this. I feel like this is just a much easier way to do it, and it's a lot more versatile. If there's days where you want more coverage, you can obviously put more on. If you do want it blended out even more, you can also tell possibly with the hydrating base is that if you put it on a base, it does sort of sheer out a little bit more. So I think I've got a little bit more sheerness here than I do here. So, you know, if you have a gripping primer, it's obviously going to grip a lot more and look a lot more sort of pigmented. So this is very, very versatile, and that's what I love about it. I am going to go in with powdering it because I do have oily areas, and things will start to move throughout the day. So I'm going to focus my powdering. I've just got the Nakia Joy Cosmetics. That's what the lid looks like. This is the Velvet Finishing Powder. It's one that I'm panning this year, but it is a nice sort of versatile powder. So I'm just going to start with under the eyes because that's where I sort of need to set first, because otherwise it can, like anything really, any base product, any concealer can migrate into my line. So I'm going to do that on both sides. So that's my main sort of focus, but I'm using a very small amount. So I don't need too much. It's a very small amount. So I've literally tapped that much into my lid, and that's all I'm going to use across my face, but I'm just going to apply it really lightly. And so I'm using, this is a Sigma soft blend brush, and I'm just tapping that really gently all over the face. I am knocking out some of that shine, that dewy shine, but I know for a fact that it's going to come back throughout the day with my oily skin, so it's not a big problem. So there we go, that's it powdered. You can see that if you powder it, it does have more of a sort of satin matte finish, and even if you put a hydrating base on and you set it, it does sort of settle down. There's a little bit more shine, but nothing crazy. And that's the amount of makeup I like to wear on a daily basis, enough to look a little bit more perfected and not like I've been awake since 4:30. Thank you, children. But light enough where it feels comfortable, but also I don't feel like I'm wearing like a cake face of makeup. I want it to look natural. I want it to look my best. And I feel like this is, you know, fantastic. I love it. So I'm going to go off and do the rest of my makeup, and I will check back with you. All right, I'm back, and I'm wearing a bit of a bold cheek and lip because I'm trying to use up this lipstick, so I'm putting it on my cheeks today. I have put no highlighter on. That is just my skin. So there is a bit of a luminosity going on, and especially quite a lot with that hydrating base. So even though I have set this with powder, my natural sort of oils do come through, and it does look really good. Everything is looking great with the makeup. I almost look like I've done a bit of one of these, because everything just looks smooth. Nothing looks like it's clinging to pores. It's just looking gorgeous. And on this side, I can't see, but you can see how it looks. I'm loving this. I love this base. I think it's fantastic. All right, we're a couple minutes shy of a 4-hour check-in, and I wanted to check in before my kids come home because otherwise I'm gonna lose track of time. But I wanted to show that at 4 hours, this is looking beautiful. Now, I have not had a relaxing day where I've just been kicking up my feet and having a cup of tea. I've been laundry, changing beds, going to the shops, walking, blah, 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 blah. I have not stopped. So I've been working up a bit of a sweat, which is what some of this glow probably is, but it's just holding it so well. And doesn't that look like the highlighter that you really want? It's just gorgeous. It's not a highlighter. I put matte lipstick on over the top of my powdered base. It's just holding oils in such a beautiful way. So unsurprisingly, we're seeing some sort of oils come through around the nose. On the chin, it's getting a bit oily. Top lip, told you, sweaty. But the forehead is really sort of set and nice. The cheeks feel really nice. Like, this doesn't feel at all oily or slippery. It's just very dewy, and that side is even shinier. So that's the primed side, even shinier. So you can see that this is holding really beautifully at 4 hours. I would expect it to. It's only 4 hours. All right, it is 5:42, which means this has been on for nearly 8 hours, and it is still looking pretty much flawless. A little bit of oil around the nose, a little bit of the chin, but it's not breaking down the makeup, it's holding, and everything's looking nice and sort of dewy. So that's my oils coming through, and that particularly that side with the dewy base, but everything is holding up beautifully. Like, if I didn't know any better, this sort of looks like I've just applied my base, and maybe I used like a more dewy foundation. It is holding up and looking so nice, and it's just like seamless. No oxidizing, no nothing. Flawless. I feel like foundation should last a minimum of 8 hours and last like and look okay at 12 hours. That's sort of my bar of what I expect. But I don't expect them to look flawless at 8 hours. This is flawless. It's 11:06 and I have not touched up my base. It is so good. A little bit greasy, but it hasn't broken down. That's all intact. A little bit wearing off the nose, so you can see the pink sort of coming through, but it's wearing down so nicely. It's so good. Dewy, yeah, but it hasn't broken down. Oh, and I reckon if you just like gave that a bit of a blotting and a repowder, 19 hours is no problem. No problem. This is such a beautiful concealer. Can you see now why I love it? It's the greatest. So I ended up wearing this for over 13 hours and it wore perfectly. It was a hot day, I was busy, but it wore really beautifully, and it's a good example of why I love this. I think it does wear really well. There might be times where something messes it up, like you get something like lipstick on your chin, you gotta wipe it, whatever, but it touches up really, really beautifully. It blots really beautifully. It's one of those things that you can refresh. So if you're really dry, you can sort of spray it with a mist. If you're really oily, you can blot it and powder it. Like, this is just such a nice flexible formula. So I do totally agree with the claims. The only claims that I can't really verify are like the long-term sort of, you know, de-puffing and red, whatever the claims were, the sort of skincare claims. Everything else, I think it meets the claims, and it almost sounds too good to be true, but it is. It's such a great concealer, and I'm going to keep repurchasing it. I think for me, this one is a tiny bit light in summer. I can obviously bronze it up, but I am so tempted to just buy a slightly darker one and just use them throughout the year as my base. I just think it's such a beautiful concealer and such a beautiful foundation. Now, I'm sure Natasha Denona will be releasing a foundation version of this very soon, but this is so like this, yeah. I can't fault it. It's lovely. So if you were curious about it, I recommend checking it out in store, seeing if you can even get an application, wear it for a bit, see if it works for your skin. But for my skin, it is my favorite concealer, hands down, and my favorite foundation as well. So I love it. So that's my review, my wear test, everything that I think you need to know about this concealer. Huge thank you to my members for supporting this channel, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.